Hey guys, I'm Scott Brown, the developer for the game Worldstone Chronicles, and this is my 29th devlog. Oh, it's been a long time, guys. I got so many updates to share with you today. First one I wanted to show you was a new updated way of showing the map. Before I used to render a camera all the way down into the 3D scene, which was really costly, so back then I decided to throttle it so it would only show you every half second. It was a bit chunky and laggy. I didn't really like it, but it worked. Instead, I actually decided to take a screenshot of a finalized scene and, scrape all the enemies out and that sort of stuff and just get the landscape. And I take a projector kind of look at it and then just take a screenshot and put it into Photoshop, maybe adjust a few things, take out all the oceans and things like that you might not see. And then I slap it in there and basically overlay it exactly where everything is in the terrain. It's a very easy way of doing this map thing, and it's super smooth. Now, it wasn't all easy to do. I actually had to make a strange adjustment to it because I didn't realize it, but I normally don't have slopes in my game. I kind of like to make my zones flat and I just work around it. But I had this one scene here which was kind of like a hill, and I did have other slope scenes too, but my newest stuff's kind of flat. Anyways, I had to make the map that I'm basically encasing here right now. I'm going to take a screenshot of it. I had to make it rise up and down to follow the terrain. Otherwise, it started to make my character skew exactly where they're on the map, just because the height and the hill that they're standing on wasn't matching. So once I figured that out, I designed a script that basically matched the elevation of my characters. And once I had that done, it was perfect. Another thing I added to enemies was the ability to see where their area effect was. So I have now these big kind of like projector kind of designs that show up on the ground. Here's a rock being tossed at you. And then there's also even hails will show like an area effect bubble. Now the rock lobbing thing started off to be quite tricky. Most of my abilities kind of just go straight like a heat-seeking missile. There's no arc to it. I was adamant on doing this because I thought it would be so cool to have these giants tossing rocks at everybody. So I added a script in there and called this new ability type lobbing, and basically just adds a little bit of extra velocity, and it kind of takes a look at the distance and bases it off that. Really cool outcome on it. I thought it was fun. Now the hill giants don't just throw rocks, they also have a foot slam I made too. It's a little bit of control for them so that they can root people who are trying to run away from their huge axe. I was working on another scene here. This one's called the Rough Marshes. It basically is a hostile and a friendly area that has some frog-like creatures. And on each side, there's the good and the bad kind of versions. So I had to make a bunch of new props here. I do use texture atlasing for a lot of my designs, and in here I'm just adding some like bug-like creatures that I've added to my food texture atlasing. So don't mind if you look at that, you see some bugs in there too. But I needed to make a bunch of new assets, so I kind of made some stuff here. And sometimes I do things right in Unity like this. I'm just kind of gathering a bunch of sticks, and then I'll end up merging them into an object in Unity. And it basically is, I don't know, sometimes I just do it this way because it's so much easier than opening Blender up. I've got my little things that I'm lazy at doing, but I tend to do this, and then I end up just saving the mesh. That way I can reuse it later on, and it's kind of no different. Now on the friendly side, it's technically only friendly if you do the appropriate things. This is a different area, and I've been trying to make these more often as you get further away from civilization. These frogs here will be your friend if you do some quests for them. They start off as neutral, and if you were to try to attack them and loot them and all that stuff, they will become hostile until there is a quest that you can do on the outside of this little civilization here. There's one default and passive frog that you can do a quest for and then regain their trust, and that way you can enter in here. But essentially it is a quest hub area. There is merchants, so ideally you wouldn't want to have them hate you. I spent a lot of time putting new things in here too. There is merchants with lots of ingredients for crafting and cooking. Even a few unique recipes to these guys here. You'll also find some ingredients that you might not find in the main town as well. Now, because this is a potentially hostile area, I did have to make it so that these guys weren't just pushovers. They do have levels and experience. They even have loot, and you know, they potentially could get quite dangerous attacking them because there's so many of them in this little area too. So I did make a whole bunch of new ones, and just kind of had some that don't really do anything. They're just kind of like guards. I made it so that they patrolled around the area and just made the place look a little bit more well guarded, considering they are in a bit of a war with these other frog-like creatures. For this zone, I also made a whole bunch of new enemies, just a variety of different things, even tiny little frogs. Now, I had to have all this stuff done. So far, I haven't really used like every single one of them, but they all have special abilities. They're all kind of unique. And it's just stuff that I had to get done. I just basically do it in one big swoop. And here's some of the enemy NPCs over on the other side, just basically setting them up and getting them ready. Now, below the last place that I was working on is this new dungeon. This one here is got a whole bunch of stuff in it, so let's just kind of fly through it and see all the different things. There's tons of new stuff in here, but one thing I wanted to bring up was this tile trap thing that I made. Basically, there's several ways to get through here. Brute force, you can disarm some of these traps, or you can just find the safe path through it. So I thought this thing was really fun. It took me a while to put it together, but I like the outcome of it so far. Now, just to complete the zone, I gotta do the whole thing, the enemies, the loot, and all that stuff. So I made a fleet of these Orathian knights and Morn priests. They're basically ancient undeads from a long, long time ago. And so here I just put together 6 different kinds. They all have unique abilities and items and all that stuff too. The theme around these guys is poison and diseases, just because they're so old and ancient. I'm trying to use all the resist tables in a variety of different ways. That way, you know, the loot and items that you're wearing can have some uses to them, because there's a resist table in the game, right? And I want to make sure that you're always maybe thinking about getting some different resist table loot for these kinds of battles. I spent a bit of time in the city here, just trying to polish things up. I was working on some of the brothel dialogue because, you know, every CRPG's got to have a good brothel. And there's a lot of other things that I fixed in here, just some of the dialogues and new options. For instance, the inn bartender here gives you a slew of new options as well. Now, one thing I had to add was an extension to the amount of options that you can get. Technically, I only had like 5 little options. Now you can actually slide down and get more. So that was an interesting thing. The next thing I needed to do was work on some character balance. What I was finding was when you progress in the story, you start meeting new companions that you can bring on your adventures. They basically start off at a certain level. Sometimes I start them off at a higher level than like 1 or 10 or something like that. And an easy way for people to get their team more balanced, because when there's a gap of 10 or more levels, it becomes a lot more difficult, and it's harder to kill enemies. So I have this training method now at the guild hall where you can spend some money and train and not have to use them, so you can have your team more balanced. It is a thing that I've been trying to do is a bit of a gold sink. I'm trying to make an economy in this game, and so things like spells, training, and ingredients and crafting are going to be where a lot of the gold is being spent. So I want to bring value to finding gold, and quests generate a lot of gold. I made more changes on the outer areas of the castle. I wanted to add some quests and some guards here, and just jazzed it up a little bit. The outer zone area did need a revamp. It was actually one of the first zones that I made. I also decided to do some little kind of situational kind of quests where like there's burning forests and that sort of thing. So I kind of put together that here and added some like burnt trees, and I even themed some of the enemies as like undead that are like on fire, and gave them some different spells and abilities just so it changed things up. I also have another zone I've been working on, which is infested with orcs and goblins, and I was just testing some things out there. I also incorporated this new it's kind of like a quest hub area. It's got basically guards you can help, and you can do quests and that sort of stuff. It also comes with a quest board that allows you to get a whole bunch of quick and simple quests to go on your travels, and it just generates gold for you and experience. These guards here attack things if you bring back enemies, so it's a bit of a safe hub as well. And sometimes there's certain quests that you need to do, and some of them provide more guards, so that it becomes an even safer safe hub. So an interesting way that I've added twists to some of these areas. I do use them quite often, so I try not to be too boring with them. So in this particular one, when you rescue some guards, you do get an extra one that stays around and helps. After my last devlog, I had spent probably about 6 months working on a lot of dialogue. And here's just a small one that I pieced together where they didn't like, one guy mentions the stench of this fire and how it smells different. And then, it's just a small little discussion about what's going on, but the idea behind it all is it all bakes into a stat system which has different like reputations. We got morality, you've got leadership, and an alignment. And alignment's an interesting one because it judges all the people on your group and how they're getting along and that sort of thing. And it also plays into how they're getting along. Say they want to like fall in love, like some of these companions will have little interactions when you swing by the city where it's a little bit more of a relaxing downtime. Sometimes they might wander off and go get laid or something like that, and there's so many of these different mixtures that you can have. So certain party members work really well together and some don't, and there's some as well that are very problematic but yet powerful characters. I've got one that you find later on in the game, and she's kind of like she's a cultist that used to work for the necromancer. She's a hottie, but she's also freaking absolute cancer in the group. So it's a very difficult situation to bring her with you. So I do have options for you where you can strive for like a weird goal to maybe make her work in a group. There are levels where, let's say you have like very high alignment because you've used certain group members for a long time. When your alignment is high, it allows you to push friendships where there usually aren't when it's low. So ideally, you don't want to be putting together people that hate each other when your alignment is low, but when your alignment is high, you can start mixing and matching people that generally don't get along. Now, that was a very big undertaking for me to put all together. It is really cool so far. When you swing by the inn, sometimes you get some interesting conversations. Some will wander off and go upstairs and have a little shag session. I don't know. I love this kind of stuff. It was something that I just spent 6 months basically wasting away on it. I did other stuff, but it's really neat. The way I designed it as well, it's not always the same. There's kind of like a sequence of dialogues that you have. So for instance, it might be like your first dialogue says this, and then when that one's done, the next time they talk, they'll go to the next sequence and the next sequence. And when they finish, say like 20, it enters in like the love stage sequences, or it could be even the opposite. It could be like where they start really getting pissed off and leaving the group. So there's lots of those little instances in there, and I even made this really cool chart that kind of is just basically a character nexus that displays who gets along, and it's just a way for me to keep track of it because I was having a very difficult time obviously putting that all in my head. So I made this, and I've been following this as like my guideline. I've revisited some of my older scenes here where I have this locked up troll. I needed to just add some dialogue and a little bit more suspense to it, so there's a lot of polish that's been added to some of these older areas. I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but the guild hall that I've got in the main city, which is an optional place that you can visit. You do need to gain access doing a quest or having a certain amount of reputation. But inside there's also some target dummies that you can get use of. I've put a different arrangement here so that you can test out your area effect, your single target. And there's even some that are highly resistant and different levels. So a very interesting way to practice your spells out and kind of understand some of these things. Now I started working on the Hill Giant zone. Is actually a zone that's split in two, yet technically it's designed as one. Don't ask me why I did it that way, but I had intentions of maybe joining it at some point. But anyways, they're technically separate, and the other side is where these big-ass trees are. I've always liked zones that had like massive trees, so I decided to make it kind of like this lodging area for the kingdom. And so you can see some of the site stuff there that used to cut it down. But I also wanted to have part of the forest intact there. You know, it's kind of like a renewal and cut down kind of system you would expect. But it's been overrun by goblins and undead. So the logging site has a whole bunch of quests to kind of restore it. And I wanted to also make this forest look really nice. So I put a lot of time and effort into making like canopies and shadows and lighting and adding lots of different foliage. And I also went with this look where, you know, typically with these really large trees, there's not a whole lot of sun that breaks through. So I kind of went with this dirt floor below everything. So I thought it looked pretty cool. I had to do some texturing and some layers of texturing to get the look I was after. But I also decided I hadn't made a city yet for gnomes. It's a playable class. Technically, they're halflings. And so I went and designed this zone here, which is filled with tons of little things. It's also a village that it's optional, and some people might not find it. It's kind of tucked away in the corner of this massive forest. And they're kind of a very reclusive species. And this is their little place here. And they also made friends with these mushrooms, which are like sentient mushrooms. And so there's a lot happening in this little zone. I spent a few weeks putting this together and really liking the results. It all ties into the main storyline as well. So lots of story to unfold there too. Another update I made was to the portal system in the game. I'm now allowed to have 2 sections of portals in each zone, and I also made this little tiny one here that has a black dot in it that basically will tell you that that zone is like a cave or somewhere like a dungeon. Another addition I made to the game was wandering merchants. I basically wanted to have like more unique and rare loot that you could purchase. So I added, with some of the RNG scripts I've used before, a merchant basically that can show up in a variety of different places in the game, and there'll be different versions, but essentially he sells high-end goods for a nice high price, but he doesn't always show up, so it's kind of rare. It's like a 5% chance that this guy will show up in the zone, and you know, that's just, I always thought that was kind of fun, because you always want to make sure you walk around with like a boatload of cash just in case you get lucky this time and he shows up. Anyways, guys, I think that's most of what I've got. I'm missing some for sure. I've done so many tasks and so many updates that I wasn't really keeping track. I was just grinding out all these things that I needed to do. I'm desperately trying to get as much done every week on this game as possible. I do a lot of work on it. You just don't see much from me anymore. I'm kind of hiding a bit because it is a lot of work, and I had this horrible realization that I'm like not even close to where I think I am half of the time. I think it's like a disability of mine or something, but I don't know how much longer this is going to take me. I keep saying like a year, and then a year zips by and I'm like, Jesus Christ, it's over already. Like, I am getting closer. I don't really know when I'm going to be done this game. It is kind of depressing that I don't really have a date in mind, but I just keep building these scenes and I keep getting closer and closer. I technically have the game fleshed out with the end and the start, and I'm kind of just putting the stuff in the middle, which is an ever-expanding amount of work. I also don't want to release this game and have it be junk. I want it to be, like something that I can look back and be proud of. So I'm not rushing this. I really want to take my time. This is my little dream project, and I don't want to ruin it by releasing early. So I just ask that you guys be patient and understand that I'm not going to give up on this. I'm far too committed to this. And the only thing that'll stop me is if I get hit by a truck and die or some other terrible news. But in the end, this project will get done. There are some interruptions in my life. I've got a family, I've got kids, and I got to make sure that I pay for the food on the table. But I'm doing fine right now. I have no financial problems. And, in my spare time, I work on this game all the time. So rest assured, it will get released. It just might be a little later than we all think. But who knows? Let's hope it's sooner than later. Anyways, guys, that's all I have for now. I will hopefully make something again for you, but no guarantees. Just know that if I was to quit, I'll definitely update you guys over here on YouTube or somewhere else. All right, folks, you have a great time, and we'll catch you later. Peace out.